Something is stealing your attention before anyone even finishes speaking. Someone gives you 3 simple instructions, and you forget the second one already. You nod with confidence because everything sounds perfectly clear at the moment. Only seconds later, you realize you cannot remember what came next at all. So you ask them to repeat it and quietly feel embarrassed once again. Soon you begin wondering if your memory is slowly getting worse every day. It feels impossible that such simple information disappears almost instantly. But this happens to far more men than most people ever realize. The surprising reason has far less to do with memory than you think. Once you discover what your brain is really doing, everything starts making sense. Most men assume forgetting instructions means their memory has become weaker over time. But memory can only keep information that your attention fully receives in the first place. The moment someone starts speaking, your brain begins filtering what seems most important. It quietly decides what deserves space and what can safely be ignored for now. Psychologists call this selective attention, and it shapes every memory you later create. If your attention slips even briefly, the instruction never becomes a stable memory. Your ears may hear every single word, while your mind processes only fragments. That is why you remember pieces of the message, but lose the critical steps. It is like trying to write on paper while someone keeps moving the notebook away. The problem is rarely your ability to remember, but your ability to fully receive. Working memory can only hold a small amount of information at one time. Once it becomes overloaded, simple instructions begin disappearing almost immediately. Your brain is not failing because it is already busy managing something else. The real question is what keeps stealing your attention before the words can settle. That answer reveals a hidden mental habit most men never realize they have. Long before someone finishes speaking, another conversation has already begun inside your mind. Part of your brain is quietly planning, solving, predicting, and preparing for what comes next. While you appear completely present, your attention is already being pulled elsewhere. Psychologists call this mind wandering, and it happens far more often than people realize. Your brain naturally drifts toward thoughts that feel unfinished, urgent, or emotionally important. A simple instruction cannot easily compete with problems your mind believes must be solved. Without noticing, you begin following your own thoughts instead of the person's words. Your eyes stay focused, and your head keeps nodding while your attention quietly leaves. The instructions enter your ears, but never receive enough focus to become lasting memories. Think about driving somewhere without remembering most of the journey after arriving safely. Listening can work exactly the same way when your brain switches into automatic mode. The conversation continues, but your conscious mind has already started another one instead. This often feels like proof your memory is getting worse when it really is not. The deeper reason has far more to do with mental overload than intelligence itself. And for many men, that overload begins with responsibilities they never truly put down. Many men carry invisible responsibilities long before the day has even fully begun. Bills, work, family goals, and unfinished problems quietly compete for every moment of attention. Even during simple conversations, the brain keeps scanning for what still needs solving next. This constant mental vigilance leaves very little space for new information to settle. Your mind stays one step ahead while the present moment slowly slips behind you. Psychologists know chronic stress pushes attention toward survival instead of learning. The brain gives priority to anything that feels urgent rather than what was just said. Simple instructions become background noise beside problems that seem impossible to ignore. It is not laziness, and it is rarely a lack of discipline or motivation. It is often a brain that has forgotten how to completely lower its guard. When your nervous system expects problems, it struggles to fully receive calm information. That is why peaceful weekends often make conversations feel much easier to remember. The people around you did not suddenly become clearer because your mind became quieter. Once that pressure begins to fade, your attention naturally becomes stronger again. But the way memory chooses what survives is even more surprising than this. Your brain was never designed to remember every word that reaches your ears each day. Instead, it constantly decides what deserves attention and what can quietly disappear instead. Emotion, meaning urgency and relevance, almost always win that silent competition for memory. Simple instructions often seem ordinary, so the brain labels them as temporarily unimportant. Before you realize it, the details begin fading long before you ever need them. Memory works less like a storage box and more like a spotlight in the dark. It shines brightest on information that feels connected to something already meaningful. Isolated instructions rarely survive unless they attach themselves to a stronger mental link. That is why one emotional conversation stays while 5 simple directions quickly vanish. Repeating instructions creates stronger connections that the brain recognizes more easily later. Visualizing each step also gives your memory another pathway it can successfully follow. Understanding grows when information becomes connected instead of floating completely alone. Once those connections appear, simple instructions become much easier to remember naturally. That realization changes what forgetting really says about the way your mind works. And it also explains why some men remember ideas better than simple directions. This does not mean you have a weak mind or a memory that cannot be trusted anymore. It may simply mean your attention has been carrying far more than anyone else can easily see. Many men who forget simple instructions are constantly thinking several steps ahead instead. Their minds naturally search for pattern solutions and possibilities before the moment is over. That strength can also make present details quietly disappear before they settle. The goal is not forcing your brain into perfect focus every single time. The goal is creating enough mental space for attention to fully receive information. Repeating instructions aloud gives your brain another chance to build stronger memories. Pausing for 1 second before acting also helps attention catch what truly matters. Breaking instructions into smaller pieces reduces pressure on your working memory. The fewer thoughts competing for attention, the easier simple directions become to follow. Real improvement begins when you work with your brain instead of fighting against it. Small habits repeated consistently often outperform natural talent over the long run. Once you understand your attention, your memory begins improving almost by itself. And that completely changes the way you see yourself every single day. The next time you forget simple instructions, do not mistake it for a failing memory. Remember that attention always comes before memory because one cannot exist without the other. Your mind was never empty because it was already carrying more than you could see. That does not make you less intelligent because it makes you deeply human instead. Sometimes, the busiest minds simply struggle to stay present long enough to absorb details. Once you understand this pattern, frustration slowly gives way to patience and confidence. You begin working with your brain instead of constantly blaming yourself for forgetting. That simple shift can make everyday conversations feel calmer, clearer, and far less stressful. Subscribe for more psychology videos that reveal the hidden patterns behind everyday behavior. You may understand your own mind far better than you ever thought possible.